guys, welcome to another episode of Screen and Heard, the podcast where we revisit the TV shows and movies that shaped us, breaking them down, analyzing their impacts, and seeing if they still hold up today. I am your number one co-host, just for today, Kwana, and joining me is the man of the hour, my brother from another mother, D.
Gang. Hello. Welcome to our podcast.
You're gonna kill me with the British accent. Hello there, sir. Good day, governor.
We need to make sure my nephew comes up here so he can do it too.
Today we are kicking things off with the series premiere of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That's right, we're talking about the episode that aired on March 10th, 1997. Welcome to the Hellmouth, where we first got introduced to Sarah Michelle Gellar's Buffy, along with the Scooby Gang, Giles, Willow, Xander, Cordy, Angel,
Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
He was there.
And he was there and getting introduced to Sunnydale as the place to be, the place where it is the seat of major supernatural activity and mayhem in the North American continent. So yeah, we of course first got introduced to the character of Buffy in the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which starred Kirsten Thompson, and that she had her own personality, her own Buffiness that we still appreciate and we still value. But I just feel like Sarah, she is the Buffy. She is Buffy. You see her now, and she is still Buffy. Yes, she's done other things. Yes, she was Daphne, but she is Buffy. So Dee, before we go into the recap, did you initially watch when it first premiered, or did you start watching Buffy in?
Oh no, I was there from day one, from episode 1.
Yeah,
I watched from the very beginning. Like when I found out it was coming on, I made sure I was available on them Thursday night on WB.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And it was its own little thing. If y'all missed out on the run of WB before it became the CW, before the stint on UPN, it was its own thing. It felt like all of the shows, they were separate, but they had their own vibe, their own little community. And it felt like we were a part of our own little tribe, because I feel like that was the station for teenagers. I mean, I guess it is the CW now, but I feel like that was really, you had UPN was the black station. That was where you went and got your black stuff. And WB was where you got your teenage stuff, because at that point, Nickelodeon and Disney were still very much kid. We were done out of that. We were entering our want to be grown phase of life.
Yeah, that in between.
So we're going to be discussing Buffy premiere episode, Welcome to the Hellmouth. And in it, of course, Buffy arrives at Sunnydale High. She's kind of hoping to leave her Slayer days behind when she meets Giles, who is going to be her new watcher. She's thinking that she has left this behind.
So she thought.
And she's just trying to be a new girl. She's not trying to make too many waves. She wants to be able to shop. She wants to be able to date boys. And she thinks that it's just as easy as putting down the Slayer mantle, but she doesn't know that she has literally moved to the seat of hell, the gateway from hell, the doorway, if you will. And along the way, she has a much bigger big bad than what she faced in the movie, the Master, an ancient vampire who's plotting his emergence into the world. But she also meets
welcome back party. So he thought.
And so this was, I think, in many ways a really good entryway into the show, because from the first few minutes, we really get a sense of who Buffy is, who she wants to be, but ultimately the hero that she is going to grow into being, the responsibility. What were your first impressions rewatching the show for the podcast?
Okay, I'm about to say which time, because I've rewatched several times. I just love how so they did play very small homages to the movie. Like, Joyce was like, don't want to get kicked out on your first day of school. And it's like, oh, okay. So you're letting us know that what happened after she burnt down the gym in the movie to kill all the, as she told the principal, asbestos or whatever. So it was just like a nice little nod. If you know, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as J Lo said, if you know, you know. So it was nice, but you see her personality has flipped from the superficial person that we knew from the movie to the I care about bigger thing
Mm-hmm.
in the TV show. Because if you have not seen the movie, Buffy was Cordelia.
Yes.
Buffy was Cordelia.
And I think
So
that's interesting to touch on when you say Buffy was Cordelia, because of course it came out much later that Cordelia actually auditioned to be Buffy. And, imagining a world in which Cordy was Buffy instead of Sarah Michelle Gellar, it's all, every time someone brings it up, it's so hard for me to conceive anyone else's Buffy, though I love Cordy. But the idea of Charisma Carpenter being Buffy, because her character is what Buffy was.
mhm.
Of course, she can't stay there.
It's good to see development that they brought that they developed her from the big screen to the small screen enough for that to be a twist. Only if you've seen the movie. If you've never seen the movie, then you would have never known how very shallow she was.
Yeah, I like the idea that you could watch the movie if you were a fan of the movie beforehand and you knew where Buffy was coming from. Of course, that brought you to the show, but you didn't have to know the movie version. It wasn't so much rested upon that, but it was those little nice touches and homages. And I feel like we don't quite get this in episode 1. I feel like they fully develop it maybe in episodes like 2 through 5. But the way in which humans without magical ability, they can't quite hold on to the magical things that they see. And so it always, was like, well, like, why would they kick her out of school? She literally saved them. But we have this, of course, now this knowledge base of like, they don't know what they saw and they don't really contend with it and know that it's real, because there's kind of like this aura that happens, this essence that happens, that they can kind of remember it, but not all the way. And so that's a little interesting twist. But I think some of the things like her shopping, we get introduced to that because that was what she wanted to do so badly in the movie. And then that's one of the things that we first see her and she's like frantically worried about what she's going to wear to school. And I love the 90s wardrobe. Those
Mm.
platforms that she had on the first day.
The
I was like,
platform, them big bulky rings that y'all wore back in the '90s. That
yes.
the costume jewelry, basically.
Yes, it was the plastic rings, the butterfly clips, and the hair. I had all those. I had shoes just like the ones she wore on that first day of school. It's so funny because if I probably would go back to my parents' like photo albums, I'm like, oh, I was really trying to tap into my Buffy.
I'm pretty
But
sure mommy does have pictures.
okay, hey, we're not going to bring up any of that. All right,
Just saying.
so one of the first people that Buffy meets. Oh, wait, before I even get to who Buffy meets on her first day of school, I will say one of the things that I think I missed, but it was an interesting precursor to what we would get in the show, is Luke Perry as Pike in the movie was supposed to be kind of like this counterculture kind of alt guy that she was dating, who wasn't the preppy boy and the pretty boy who was in school with her. He was above all that. And she moves on from that to Angel as the love interest. So I think it was like a nice little precursor to show that she was moving away from who maybe the normal high school girl who looked like Buffy would be gravitating toward. It was
Hmm.
something in the 90s where it was like, you got to go for the bad boy, and we got to go up a level. The show went up a level in so many ways. How do we go up from Pike? Oh, we're going to give her a vampire.
200-year-old vampire.
We're gonna give her a vampire. We're not gonna worry about the age gap and all of that.
Yeah,
So
statutory does not exist on television, but go ahead.
one of the first people, of course, that she meets when she gets to Sunnydale is Xander. So we have to talk about the Xander of it all, because I feel like
Was
Xander
Xander the
is.
first one that she met?
I think Xander was the first.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
No, 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 no.
Xander saw her.
Xander saw her, but he didn't meet her. But he saw her. So
Yeah, he
I
saw her. He was skateboarding, which we never saw Xander skateboard ever again.
he crashed into
Only
her.
no, not right there. He crashed into the stairs.
He crashed into the
He ra-
stairs, and Willow saw him and was like, "What?" It was like, "Yeah, okay." And
right. So
Cordy,
he crashed into her, and yeah, the first one he met was the first one she met was Cordelia in class, in history class,
that's right, that's right. I don't know
and then
why
she
I'm
bumped in. then she bumped into Xander after that. But we can still talk about Alexander Harris and how,
Um,
again, he's never skateboarded ever again.
no, that and I feel kind of bad for Xander as a person who, likes to dabble in writing, because he's kind of, we have these cast of characters that are going to come in and kind of be our everyman, normal, regular people. They don't have powers, they don't have abilities, and it's kind of like what would happen if a normal person was just kind of thrust into these friendships with people who actually have powers. So I always felt kind of bad for Xander because they could not figure out his personality and what he was supposed to do. I feel like we see so many glimpses of that in this first episode, where he's just, his personality is horny teenage boy.
I mean, it tracks though, because given that time frame, he's a horny teenage boy.
He was.
We're 15, 16. That's on par. You see a pretty girl, but I mean, you can't be sorry for Xander and not be sorry for Willow.
No, I definitely think like you feel sorry for Xander, you feel sorry for Willow, especially, we're watching, so we know where Willow ends up. But she, of course, is like, I am a normal, regular girl. I'm not the prettiest girl in school. I'm smart and I'm clever. Why shouldn't I be able to get my best friend who I'm attracted to fall in love with me? But the reality is that it doesn't happen. People have, high school is a breeding ground for hierarchy. Xander wants the girl who's pretty and hot, and Willow
Hmm.
wants Xander, at least at first.
Okay, so bef- okay, so before we even talk about Willow, let's talk about the person who doesn't make it back. We think that he's gonna survive. We think that he is part of the main team. He not. Let's talk about Jesse.
Okay, let's talk about Jesse.
Let's talk about Jesse, because Jesse, we don't even know Jesse's last name. Jesse is a friend of Willow and Xander's. I'm assuming that the three of them have been friends for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have their playful banter in the beginning. Jesse is attracted to Cordelia, and
Mm-hmm.
he's also he ain't a nerd. He's like geek, maybe. I feel like geek is different too because he's not smart.
No,
I mean, he could be smart. I don't know. We don't know. He's not around long
we
enough.
don't get to know, but he doesn't
We
seem
don't
like
know.
he's smart like Willow. Like he doesn't, Xander's not begging him for homework help in the way that he's begging Willow.
True.
So we know he's not that kind of smart.
And then the
And
audacity of him needing Willow trying to get him to get a book for trigonometry. Ain't no way Xander is taking trigonometry.
if he is, it's because he's been copying off of Willow's paper his whole life.
But that you ain't testing into trigonometry for copying homework, sir. You are taking pre-algebra. It's okay. You
Yeah.
might be taking geometry. It's okay. It's okay. Y'all ain't got to try to hype them up at all. Yeah, Jesse. I thought Jesse was gonna be a standout character. I thought he was gonna be with them, and then he wasn't. Wrong place, wrong time. Actually, chasing skirt. That's how he got caught up, and
Yeah.
that's normally how it happens. You get
I
caught up
feel like
doing something you ain't no business doing.
the Jesse's role in the show is the most like the movie, in the sense of trying to do the thing where a friend gets turned, and they were trying to replicate that, and they did not want to take that away from who was going to actually be our core. So it's like we got to throw somebody in here to make it have weight, to make the threat of the vampires have weight. But at the same time, we don't want to take away from who's going to become Buffy's core support system. So they had to kind of throw in Jesse.
I see where you're going with that. Like one of the friends gets taken in turn, so now they're like, okay, we're going to fight for free my boy Jesse type situation. Now we're involved because they involved us. But the
Yeah.
thing that I don't like is that like y'all forgot about your friend. For the
Yeah.
next 7 years, y'all ain't never brought him up. Y'all ain't never went to his grave. Y'all ain't never R.I.P. my boy Jesse. Had a T-shirt with him in the clouds or whatever, or him in an urn. Who that?
Hmm.
Who that?
Mr. Stevens.
Hello, Ian. What it do, Wody?
You just completely like, oh, she gonna cut this out.
Or nah. Whatever.
The other thing I feel like why they had Jess, it kind of makes me think back to another really popular teen program from the 90s, Beverly Hills 90210. Because I feel like they did that in, oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget the boy's name, but it was the friend of David. David had that friend in season 1 who was the
Anna, we
nerd.
were a lot younger for that. I definitely don't remember that.
Oh my gosh! While
We
was
were
I
definitely a
I
we were
was
definitely a
watching.
lot younger.
I was watching Beverly Hills 90210 in elementary school. I don't know why.
Exactly.
I vividly remember watching it, and I was in second grade. I remember because I got a burn on my finger because I was trying to sneak boiled peanuts out of a pot that my mom had made, and I burnt my finger and it bubbled up. And I remember I was watching the graduation episode of, I guess it was season 3 or whatever, and I was rubbing it and it burst, which is really nasty. But that's how I know I was locked into Beverly Hills 90210. But they had a character. Now he did make it throughout almost all of season 1, and he becomes like the catalyst for David's character to change, Ryan Austin Green's character to change. But I feel like it was just that trope of like, we have to give a disposable friend someone who can create meaning for one of the other characters. But like you said, it kind of fell short because they never came back to Jesse. They never thought
Never
back
one.
to what happened to him.
Not a single one.
That's so sad. And then we have to talk about another character that we meet very early in the show, which is Principal Snyder.
We met Principal Snyder in the beginning.
Yeah, because remember we met Principal Snyder and he was talking junk. Wasn't Principal Snyder? Who was the principal before Snyder?
It wasn't Snyder.
It wasn't Snyder. It was the other principal. It was the one we. It was the other one
He
we didn't
said you
like.
can. He said you can call me the students feel free to call me Bob, and she said okay, thanks Bob.
Bob.
He's like, but they don't. What was
They
his
don't.
last name?
What was his name? The first
I don't even
principal.
remember. I don't remember what his name was, but we just call him Bob because he said we could,
And I'm about to find out.
and it probably
Flutie,
wasn't Bob.
Principal Flutie. Principal
Okay,
Flutie, Robert Flutie. My friends call me Bob, and he was like he tore up her
for
transcript about the
transcript,
bad stuff. About something, he was like, when
and
she
he's like,
started
let me
talking
take this
too
butt
much,
together.
she started giving a little too much information. He was like, let me just pull out the tape and started taping that bad
She
boy back.
said, I know my transcript is a little colorful. He said, colorful? Is that the word you would use? Like, dang, shots fired.
Yeah, I'm like, he was just giving this aura at first. We first meet him, like, okay, he's not going to hold anything that happened against her. And then she starts talking a little bit, and he's like, wait, I didn't look at this like I needed to. I thought we were just dealing with some
You what?
regular stuff. Let me get the tape. He
Got
started
a
taping that
specialist
stuff
would do stuff
together.
to you.
I was cackling on that. I was like, I forgot how much. He doesn't make it very far.
He made it further than
And then
Jesse.
he did make it further than Jesse.
His
Poor Jesse.
residuals come back to be a little bit more than Jesse's.
Oh man, now we're gonna talk. He's like he's getting more than 3 cents
Yeah.
per check.
R.I.P. my boy Bob.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, so yeah, so we were supposed to be talking about who saw Buffy first and everything. We
Oh
got
yeah. So
sidetracked.
who saw Buffy first?
So her and Cordy. So we
Cordy.
meet Cordelia Chase. I love her. If I would have been Sunny Day during that period, she's the bitch I would have wanted to be. She is very
Yeah.
brash. She's very brash. She will say exactly what's on her mind and keep it moving. Not even care if it hurts your feelings or not. And Cordy tells her, "Yo, you need to go get your own book. But
Yeah.
because you're from LA, you might be cool and you can probably join my clique." So she gives Buffy a little test to see how cool she is. Talk about vamp nail polish. Who is the man that she said? John Tesh? Is that who she said is the devil?
Uh-huh.
And it was one more question. And
It,
then she invited her to the bronze.
and that's
And
where we
then we're introduced to Willow because
water fountain.
at the water fountain and the shade that Cordelia, I'm glad to see you find the softer side of Sears. Like, okay, bitch. Now, if she would have come at me like that, I probably would have drowned her in the water fountain.
And I feel like that's such a classic. Like it was a heartbreaking scene for Willow because I felt like Willow at times and tried to like fight so hard to like be cute and wear the cute stuff and things like that and upscale a little bit and think I was doing enough, but I wasn't doing enough.
Girl,
So
we
I
went to
felt
black house schools too, so
I felt for Willow, but then at the same time, looking at it from a character development standpoint, it was the absolute best way to introduce Cordy as
the mean girl.
the mean girl and the antagonist against, Buffy, and to show Buffy where she came from and what she used to be, and to kind of remind her of that. But then we get this lovely arc later throughout the series for Cordy. So I hate it for Willow, but I love that scene.
And then even Buffy was looking at Corey like, damn, you a bitch.
Like,
You a
like you
bitch. Like, oh, like she probably had a thought like, oh, is that how I used to be?
like, oh man, that used to be me.
And so then from there, Buffy goes to the
She goes
library to get books, to get a
to
book or get some
and
books.
and can we just say, Giles, why would I don't care that you thought that she was, you weren't 100% sure and you thought she was the Slayer, but that's your entryway. I'm gonna just slam this big book that says Vampire on the table and be like, this is the
Mm-hmm.
book you're looking for. It's not the book that you came and asked me about as a student. This is the book you
Mm-mm.
really want. Why would you do that?
Man, I don't want that. I don't want that.
Why would you do that, my God? Like it was just such a bad way.
What if that wasn't her? They
And
don't
what
send you pictures.
he was
They
like,
don't think you
oh, I'm sorry. I guess I was mistaken.
like. But now I want to know: was Giles and Merrick friends? Did they know each other? Did they go to Watcher School together?
And did we ever find out if Giles was already in Sunnydale, just kind of waiting, or did he go like did he get hired once he knew that Buffy was going to be heading there?
We never found out.
And for that matter, did the Watchers orchestrate in some way, shape, or form Joyce getting a job in Sunnydale?
Ooh.
Let's
Thank you, Sissy. That's a good question. If we ever meet somebody from the cast, we definitely need to
we
ask these type
definitely
of
need to ask
questions.
that question because
Somebody at Anthony Stewart Head.
yes, because I mean, we need to know like, was Giles just sitting around kicking it in Sunnydale, waiting and hoping that a Slayer would pop up at some point in time? I know that they were saying that there was more activity at the Hellmouth. And so ultimately, Buffy was drawn to it, but she was a kid. She wasn't really drawn to it. Her mama was like, look, we moving. This is where we going.
Hmm.
We loading up the truck and moving to Beverly. Like she didn't really have a much say. So it's not like some of the other Slayers who were
It
independent
was
and on
kind
their
of like, oh, maybe like the Watchers Council was like, oh, where was even the museum at that she worked at? Hey, Kwame, can you pause for a second? Can we pause?
we can pause.
I had cut the air conditioner on, but I'm sitting right under it also. Yeah, so it's like, how did they orchestrate that? Oh, like they never told us.
They never told us how they orchestrated that.
Don't be
And it
suspicious.
becomes
Don't be
more
suspicious.
noticeable. It becomes more noticeable in season two. In season two, when we meet, no, was it season two? Was season two when we meet another character who has a little bit more knowledge about their gifts and talent. And Buffy did not find out that she was a Slayer until she was 16. And but there are other Slayers who are trained forever. And so it just makes you wonder like why was she not given the same advantages and at the same time to kind of adjust to it? She's just kind of thrown into it in both cases. And she's never really given the understanding that like this is a calling that you kind of don't have a choice in making. So we don't really know. We don't never find out like if all of this was just kind of orchestrated to get her to Sunnydale. I guess I mean I would assume it was, but we don't know. Okay, so then from there, Buffy meets up with Willow and Xander and Jesse, and they're just talking normal kid stuff, right? Talking about going to the Bronze, talking about why why Buffy has a stake.
Yeah, Willow. Xander gives her the steak back that she dropped when he bumped into her when she was running out the library. They
She's
want
like,
to know
oh,
all her personal deep dark secrets, and like that's a lot to be thrust up on somebody. And we just met. Like, bro, calm down. Like,
yes,
pump your brakes. Like, you asking a lot. I don't know you like that. See, this is why Buffy was Buffy and not Chandrea, because that could have been different.
it would have been a whole lot different.
Could have been a
And
lot
then
different.
Cordy, right after that is right when Cordy when they go to like gym or something, but gym gets canceled
Because there's
because
a
they
dead body.
dead body. And so
Can
she
we
goes,
talk about can we talk about the dead body? Oh
yes,
wait, that's what we should have started off with. So the dead body is the guy from the very first couple of minutes who
yes,
snuck into the school. We omitted that part. Sorry, guys. He snuck into the school with a particular vampire that
yes,
we see throughout the Buffyverse a few times.
yes,
Um, she's I love. Was it Julie Ben? She's
yes,
gorgeous.
Darla, Julie Ben.
She is gorgeous. She's always been gorgeous. So we introduced to our first vampire in the first couple of minutes. A guy breaks into a school, breaks into Sunnydale High with a
Mhm.
girl, and he wants to show her the rooftop because you can see all of Sunnydale from up there. And she does the. So we're thinking that he's actually the vampire, or
Yes,
he's a big bag,
yes,
and he's about to get taken and we had the rug pulled right from under us. She
yes,
faked the whole, what's that? I heard a sound. You know how white girls do in movies. And he's like, it might be something, or it might be something. And she's like, don't do that. That scares me. And he turns around and fakes looking to see what that sound is. And he's like, oh, it's nothing. And she said, good. And she bites him.
Yes.
And she bites him.
Darla
She
really
takes
was
it.
that girl. We
Darla
didn't
was
know
that
how much
girl.
we didn't know how much that girl she was gonna be.
We didn't. We
And
like Darla did not get enough love. I
no,
mean, I would have staked her in the heart too, but she did not get enough love. And she stuffed Barbara in the locker. We don't even know what his name was.
no, I don't think they ever tell his name.
No, no, he did. He
Oh,
did. He had a shorter life history than Jesse, and I'm just saying.
yeah, so Buffy takes that moment and that energy and storms back to the library to confront Giles, and it's like trying to pass off her wanting to interrogate him, but also not fully give in to the fact that she is who she is. So I love how the way she plays off. She's like, "Do you know that like she's like acting almost like he doesn't know, and she's almost trying to like act like she's asking him questions, like she's clueless instead of." That she's fully aware that this is obviously a vampire. And so, in confronting Giles, it's like clear, like, yes, this is your, watcher. And he basically informs her, I'm your new watcher. And so that I think that moment was really good because we got the glimpse at the beginning of her like trying to shy away from it. But in that moment, we really get their banter that they're going to have, that dynamic that they have throughout at least the first 3 seasons. I feel like that's the banter that they keep. They do lose some of it later on, but up until the point where he's like, it's just like she's this disgruntled employee and he's her manager vibe.
Yeah, so they found Bruh in the locker and they're telling the story. And the 2 girls, one of them is Persia White. I love Persia.
Persia White.
Persia White
Yes.
and some other girl. And they even gave them that 90s the verbiage, like the way that they talk while they were, like
That
LA type Valley Girl stuff. Yes.
girl talk.
And they were talking about how, like, oh my God, can you believe this girl's name is Buffy? Like, what kind of name is Buffy? And then Persia she looks at the white girl and was like, okay, Aphrodisiac, I'll see you later. I'm like, a white girl named Aphrodisiac? Like, that, ma'am, the audacity for you to talk about Buffy and your name is Aphrodisiac and you're Caucasian? Let it be.
The nerve.
The gall.
But then after the whole situation with the library and with Giles, we had a spy. We had a little spy going on in that moment.
Yeah, but he don't know what he heard or what he saw. It's your boy.
He was like,
It's your
wait,
boy, Alexander Hedis.
did you think that when we met Xander in episode 1, did you think that he was going to really stick around and be like someone who was going to fully be, or I should say this, let me ask it this way. Was it clear to you that he was never going to be a fully realized love interest for Buffy?
Oh yeah. Girls like that don't go for guys like ever.
Yeah, he was a little bit too much of a try hard, I guess, in the beginning, but then also not trying hard enough. It's kind of weird. He should have really just got with Willow. Okay, so do we want to go to the second major location of the episode?
The Bronze, which is on the good side of town, which is not far from the bad side of town because they don't have a lot of town in Sunnydale.
I'm like, wait, what? It's like the same. It's like it's the good side, but it's not the bad side. And it was an adult club, but they had, I guess, the teen present. So it was like a cross between an adult club and a teen club.
And that's probably something that they do in California. It's probably a California thing because that's just grounds for statutory. I'm just saying.
It is.
Predatory.
I remember there being teen club in the 90s, or at least teen nights. My parents never let me go to a teen club.
Patricia didn't either.
I know Patricia was like, no, you better take yourself down to the skating rink. You better go to the roundabout.
Which is the irony of you would drop us off for all night skating, but I couldn't go to this little club. But whatever.
And we never get that in Buffy. I will say that's some of the sad things that we never get because they centered all of it around the Bronze, which I think that was also a very 90s thing because it was a way to include music into the show and to have musical acts show up. They did that in Beverly Hills 90210. They did that in New York Undercover, where everything was centered around a club. And probably, like you said, it is probably a California thing, but we never really got a chance to see Buffy and the crew do like normal kid stuff. Like there was never a mall. Like she always wanted to go to the mall, and yet they were never hanging out at the mall. They never are hanging out at the, like I'm thinking all the places that we as kids growing up in Fayetteville would be going to. We'd be hanging out outside the Dollar Movie Theater, both of them, either one. We would be going to Putt Putt or whatever the name of the one was across the street or next to the Dollar Movie Theater. You'd be going to the mall. So there were all those things that they did that we did as kids that they never really got a chance to do. It was just hanging out at the Bronx.
Just the Bronx. Even when they transferred to adulthood, they went to the Bronx.
Yeah, the same place that y'all went to as teenagers. The day, look, the traumas and the ills of growing up and not wanting to grow up. And so what happens at the Bronze, Steve? Who do we meet at the Bronze?
Well, Willow shared her feelings about Xander, and Buffy gave her a nice little Latin quote, Carpe Diem. Seize the day. That's my motto. She said, "You want to know what my motto is?" And Willow was like, "You're right. I will seize the day." And then Buffy saw Giles in the rafters looking around like a stalker, looking at all these teenagers. So Buffy's like, "I'll be back." And Willow's like, "Oh, you don't have to." Buffy's like, "I'm going to be right back, girl. Stop playing with me." And so then she goes and talks to Giles at the top of the rafter. And then, I feel like, doesn't she make a comment about Giles being in there and him being too old? Maybe I'm wrong.
I feel like that did happen because I remember thinking, yes, you, like Giles, they didn't ask you to chaperone at the Bronze. This is not a school dance.
With your tweed suit. And then Buffy, Giles is telling Buffy that, yo, you need to be able to spot these vampires out in the crowd without their vampire faces on.
Yes.
And it brings me back to the movie. Because in the movie, there was a way for her to know when vampires was around.
Yes, it was her cramps.
And they never brought that into the TV show.
No.
Not a single one.
Which, in hindsight, hearing some of the things about the show and some of the maybe thoughts and opinions of the show's creator, I'm actually kind of shocked that they didn't bring that in. I wonder if there was some female consultants who said, yeah, we don't want to make women's developmental processes a part of this, or if it was just something they just decided not to go with, or if they just forgot, because it was her cramps, if she was getting cramps. But I mean, of course, that did always make the question: is she getting cramps all of the time, or is she only able to sense vampires when it's time for her cycle to start? Maybe it was like problematic. But they never brought it into the show. It was just like,
they could have gave her something else. They could have gave her some kind of spidey sense.
A tingle in the back of her head. The hairs on her arms stand up or something.
A little twitch or something.
Like maybe she's allergic to them, like Lisa
Turtle.
They
kept her having the vision. She still had visions. They still kept that from the movie. I mean, you could have gave her something, but she spots the vampire because Willow Carpe Diem, and she talked about the man's outfit. That's how she knew he was a vampire. Nobody, born after so and so will be caught dead wearing that, or whatever it was. She said something close to that.
But that doesn't make sense because we see a lot of the vampires that are going to get turned are from the high school. So it would have made more sense for them to keep a physical response to vampires, because she can't use that metric all the time.
Right.
When somebody who has been around for a long time, like the Master or Angel, but when it's just a regular kid who got turned black.
Just remember, Darla in the very first 5 minutes was dressed like a Catholic schoolgirl.
Yeah.
Like she went to the little private school.
Yeah.
So, whatever the case may be. So she realizes that Willow she about to be caught up.
Yeah.
So she goes to go save her potential bestie, and she pulls out her little stake. It wasn't Mr. Pointy, but she pulls out a little stake, and she's scrounging around through the Bronze looking for Willow or whatever, and then she walks up on Cordy, and she hems Cordy up against that wall.
Yeah.
Oh, she hems Cordy up, grab her by the throat, and
yeah, we see some real aggression between the two of them ladies.
Yeah. And Cordy said, "Excuse me, I have to call everybody I've ever met," and pulls out her little old school. I'm gonna assume it was a Nokia because I feel like that's what we had back then.
We had
Well, that's what
Nokia.
the rich people had. You had to unflip that phone and call people and tell everybody that Buffy is going around chasing people with a stick. And like, dang, Cordy, you done played phone booth, telephone with that. Like you done took it and you done
And then while all this is going on, Jesse, poor thing, starts chatting up Darla,
with our friend Darla.
our
He said, "Do
friend
you have
Darla.
family around?" He's like, "Are you from around here?" I have family here. That little
Little did
whimsical
we
look on
know
her
how
face.
much that line was going to come back into the show. I have family here,
Wait, did I
because
miss something?
that's
What line? Wait, what? Okay, we'll get to
because
it later.
yeah, because we get to it later. But also during this process, we see a mysteriously dark-haired, strange
Oh
actor,
yeah, yeah, we meet him,
a cradle robber, if you will.
and we will. We definitely will. He definitely did that.
And so we meet Angel in the process as well. But what's happening under the street? So we have all of this happening on top of the surface in Buffy's real life, all of this convergence of her real life and the vampire world. But then underneath the city street, what's happening, D? What's going on?
Oh, there's this other man who stays in vampire form, who trying to come up from the streets. He's trying to come up from the gutter, and him is the master, wearing his all leather suit. I know he's
Yeah,
hot. I know he's
from
hot.
top to bottom. They said we're tapping into old school Nosferatu right here for the inspiration behind him.
And yeah, he tired of living down there. He want to get back up on the surface and bite some people himself. So Buffy, Xander pops up and she's like, "Have you seen Willow?" And he's like, "Why? You know Willow went away." She's like, "I don't have time for this." And he was like, yeah, he brought up something about the vampires, and she was like, "Does anybody in here not know who I am?" And Xander was like, "I know what you claim to be. Like, I don't believe in vampires, but whatever." Then he tells them there's a whole underground that you can get from point A to point B in the city that people can use or whatever. And so she's like, "Oh, well, do you know where they could be at?" So she goes to searching. I don't even know how she ends up in the mausoleum, in the old crypt where
I
she
mean, I think
found
she's kind of
them.
rambling around still, and she just ends up there. We just end up.
Well, the
This
guy that Willow went with to go get ice cream with, they end up there. And then Jesse comes stumbling in. Darla and took a piece out of him.
Yeah.
And then we meet Luke,
We meet Luke.
and Luke is like, "Okay, do y'all got an offering for the master?" And then here comes Buffy with her banter,
Yeah.
and here we see Buffy first fight.
Yep. Her first full fighting sequence with her and Darla.
But yeah, she slaps Dollar around like it's nothing. She staked the vampire with the weird clothes, and then she fights Luke, and Luke knocks her around like a rag doll. So, side note, I find this out later on in life. And did you realize that Buffy never staked a vampire with their human face? It was always with their vampire face that she
Oh,
always staked them in. And they say that they wrote it like that because they didn't want it to seem like she was ever killing a human.
that makes sense. That makes sense, and it makes sense for later in the show why she reacts certain ways to certain deaths that happen.
Mm.
If she's kind of protecting herself from that, if they're trying to protect it from that image, especially in the time of like things that were going on, uptakes and like school violence at that time, that kind of makes sense.
Hmm.
Interesting. It's also interesting. Like I don't want to fully get into it, but like the way that the vampire kills happen and what happens with the vampires transitions from the movie to what we see in the first episode, and eventually even that evolves to different ways in which the vampires are killed and what happens to their bodies when they are killed.
Hmm.
What did you think of the ways, like how the vampires looked, even, and even the way that they looked, like the vampire faces looked very different to me in rewatching this first episode, because what I remember most closely is the latter episodes and how they look later in the series versus how they look in one. So what did you
Let me
think
see.
about like
I have to go back and rewatch. I will obviously we will to see in the later series what I mean. It just looked like it was they looked like monsters. I guess like they were supposed to.
yeah.
Which we're not used to seeing vampires look like that in any other pop culture.
No.
Normally it's just like, oh, okay, just my teeth. I mean, there were some movies where the vampires, took a complete kind of deformity look type thing, but in a lot of things, it's just like, okay, I'm still a vampire. Look at me, and my teeth just get longer. Unless you're a Cullen and then you sparkle in the sunshine.
Sparkle the sunshine. Twilight so much. I don't feel bad. When you think of it in juxtaposition to Buffy, it is a bit ridiculous, the idea that the vampires sparkle in the sunshine.
Yeah.
So we'll get to the end of the episode, and it's kind of a cliffhanger, and I feel like nowadays we don't even really have cliffhangers anymore in the same way that we did back in the 90s. We fully had cliffhangers. We had cliffhanger episodes, and then we had cliffhangers in our season finale.
We had episodes that just say to be continued. I forgot about to be continued. I just know everything now is just always to be continued without the words pop up. But episode 1 said to be continued. I can't say the last time I saw words pop up that said that.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like you threatened me, to be continued.
Right.
And individual episodes had a recap. Like, I think we're getting back to recaps now for the individual episodes, but for a while with streaming, you would just get recaps at this series. You wouldn't get it for individual episodes, but you had a recap in episodes because you had to wait a week before you could watch it. So they had to remind you.
You had last week on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
You had to wait. You had to be like, dang. Now I gotta wait till next Thursday to find out what happened.
Like, this is tragic. Next Thursday at 9:00, I gotta make sure my homework is done.
I can't just watch it tomorrow when I want to. Like, wait, what?
I can't binge. Yeah, these kids today don't know nothing about life.
No. So, who to you was the standout character from the first?
I'm still say Cordelia. I'm rocking with Cord. Like, she has no filter. If she thinks it, she says it. Like, there's no, maybe I should say it a different way. It is a straight, this is what's on my mind. This is what's coming out of my mouth.
Yeah. I feel like if we were in the Buffy universe and neither one of us was Buffy, you are definitely the Cordy in our relationship. You are the Cordy and I am the Willow.
Is that a compliment?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's because I love Cordy. I love Cordy, but that's the thing is I admire Cordy because I'm not that way, and you are that way. And sometimes I have to be your filter, and sometimes I'm like, okay, which you would.
No, I think before I speak, I just choose to continue to say them words.
You do. You do think. I think Cordy sometimes, and she's just like, I'm going to say this because it needs to be said. There are
there's no sugarcoating. Like, because I mean, Cordy didn't realize this, and it's probably just how she grew up, her upbringing or whatever. But sometimes when you sugarcoat something, people don't get the true tone of what you're trying to say. You're trying to be nice and spare their feelings. And they're just like, oh, I wonder who they're talking about. Bitch, I'm talking to you. I'm talking about you. Now I have to be specific.
Yeah.
But I have had to grow and learn. You can't say everything.
No, but you were certainly much more closer to Cordy, even when we were teenagers. And you've come a long way, much like Cordy is going to come a long way, in the best way. But she is the most fun character. I feel like even in this first episode,
she's the most transparent.
She's the most.
I feel like she's transparent because you don't have to ask Cordelia what's on her mind because she's going to tell you.
She's going to tell you.
Nobody else is going to tell you. Oh, by the way, at the end of episode 1, Jesse is turning into a vampire. Moving on.
I will say this also. Just in terms of casting, I absolutely love that we got Allison Hannigan as Willow, just from someone who grew up loving My Stepmom is an Alien. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know that I remembered her from anything else, but I was like, oh my gosh, it's the girl from My Stepmom is an Alien. And I loved her. So I was so happy to see her as Willow. I can't even picture anyone else. Like, I just feel like that. I feel like the one character that, as much as I tend to be a Xander apologist. I know it's very common for people to be like, no, but I tend to be a Xander apologist. But I will say that I do feel like where they got the casting so right for this show, but between Charisma as Cordelia and Allison as Willow, I cannot picture anyone else being those two characters. I can picture someone else playing Xander, but I cannot picture another Willow or Cordy.
Do you think Jesse could have played Xander?
I think Jesse could have been Xander.
Actually, I feel like those two were interchangeable anyway.
They were. I feel like it's literally just what happened to Jesse is what would have happened to Xander if he hadn't fixated on Buffy, right? If he had not fixated on Buffy, and he was trying to do the same thing that Jesse would do. He would go try to chat up the pretty girl who was making eyes at him in the corner because he's not getting any play anywhere else, and he would have been just. It's just a difference in hairstyle.
Yeah,
they could have rolled the dice and said which one of these guys is going to stay with the
and
friend. Was not.
they probably did. We
Might
don't know.
have done that. Oh, I'm so sorry,
I like
Nicholas.
Xander. I didn't have a problem with Xander. Like I felt like they needed him.
I definitely do like Xander much better after season 3
Hmm.
because he was just kind of like in the way and oblivious to the feelings of the women around him in the first. Anthony Stewart Head as Rupert Giles thought.
I wonder why all the Watchers are British. Like once again, like if you look back,
Without
again,
giving any spoilers, I feel like once we get the lore of where the first Slayer comes from, it makes
right?
sense because they always trying to colonize everything.
Get out of my head! Get out of my head!
You know, we'd be right here. We were right here.
Oh man, those were I was literally thinking that, but I was trying to find. You found the better way to say it. You did because I was not about to be PC at
Yeah,
all.
I mean, I
Just
just feel
like you
like
said,
it just
I don't know.
makes sense. It makes sense. It doesn't make sense, but it makes sense. So it's going to be interesting to see when they. I don't know if they're calling it a reboot or a sequel, but whatever they're trying to do with Buffy with the IP, it'll be interesting to see who they cast as the Watcher. Whether they will be British, whether they're going to be a
Well,
British
I have
color.
thoughts about that, but that'll be later.
You know, whether there'll be a British person of color, whether they're going to be
Or would it
white
be
British.
somebody that was in the last couple of seasons of the series? Who knows? Who was American, but he was a self-proclaimed watcher. But we'll get to that later.
Could be there. Could be there. Okay. Yeah. Thought. Okay, no, not give too much. Okay. What was your favorite moment from the episode?
What was your favorite moment? And then I'll go.
Okay, my favorite moment from the episode is probably when Buffy and Willow kind of meet and like they for real kind of like are hanging out a little bit. Not when they're hanging out at the Bronze, but when they're hanging out out at school and like talking about like school and like Buffy's kind of trying to give Willow a little bit of confidence and like make sure she's okay from the things that Cordy said and everything. And I think that's such a good start to their friendship, and I love their friendship. I wish we had gotten to see even more Buffy and Willow in the later seasons, but their friendship's so important, and I love that's probably one of my favorite pieces because in real life there's always the narrative that girls can't be friends, and I think definitely with like we see the dynamic with Cordy that like she's running the other girls, she doesn't really have true friends. So I like that we get to see Buffy and Willow building a true friendship. That's me and my little
That's
heart.
so you sounds just like you, 100%.
Like
I've
hearts and
tried.
flowers, everybody.
I've tried for years to break that out of you, and I failed.
Oh, you failed me.
I don't know. I mean, because right before the to be continued, Buffy got beat up. Like Luke put the smack down on her, dropped her into a coffin, or is it a coffin? What, a sarcophagus? Oh, a
Yes.
tomb. A
Yeah.
tomb?
Yeah.
Whatever. He dropped her into one of those, and then we ended it where he pounced on top of her, and he was about to bite her, and then it said to be continued. So that could have been the end of the episode right there. That could have been the end of the series right there.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
as a whole, I
we
mean,
knew
it was
we were gonna get
rewatchable
more.
for me. Yeah, it was rewatchable for me. I don't know if I have a favorite part.
So I guess without having any favorites, we really want to hear from you all, the listeners and fans of the show. What were your favorite moments from Welcome to the Hellmouth? What stood out to you on rewatch? I think the show still the fashion and the slang is still very 90s time capsule, but I think the plot point could happen today. I think we could take everything and we would just upgrade the setting and upgrade some of
Oh,
the
wait.
fashion, and it would still work.
One thing I want to talk about in the very beginning when Buffy was getting dropped off at school
Mm-hmm.
and her mom was dropping her off. Why were there all these short buses? They had a shit ton of short buses pulling up to the school. They weren't regular size buses. And then like the second day of school or whatever, or later on in that scene, then we see full size buses. But in the
Maybe
very beginning, there was some. I was like, dang, y'all got a lot of short bus shorties on that in that school right now?
Maybe it was because, Sunnydale's not that big, and maybe because a lot of the wealthier kids are driving, so maybe they didn't have as many kids riding the buses, so maybe
I mean, that
they
makes
drove
sense. But
more
I was just
buses.
like, there are a lot of people that
Because
lick the windows
we
riding
never
buses.
see a lot of diversity in regards to developmental abilities in the show.
Not saying one.
So
And I feel
now
like
when
Harmony. I feel like Harmony was probably slow, but that's neither here nor there for now.
yeah,
I feel like Harmony was a little slow.
Harmony was definitely. I can't believe, and you know what? I'll be honest though, I noticed Persia White on this episode, but of course I didn't know who she was when the show first came out. And
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
no.
know that I ever, in most of my rewatches, I never started from the beginning. So I never paid as much attention to her. And I was like, oh, my girlfriend.
She was very whitewashed in that first episode.
She
So you
was.
wouldn't have like it wasn't until years later after Girlfriends when I saw something that said it was her, then I had to go back and look for myself and then
Yeah.
realize, yeah, that her.
I guess we can talk more about David Boreanaz in the second episode because he's only in this episode a little bit. We really don't get much about him, as much about him in this episode. We do get some more next episode. But what do you think about them casting him as Angel?
I mean, I guess it worked. He was supposed to be a rooting white man, and he served his purpose.
Yeah, I think one of the hardships of having a show set in high school with a vampire as the primary love interest, and you trying to keep them on from any length of time, is that you want someone whose looks aren't going to change because vampires don't age. And my boy was in that role, and definitely by the time he got his own spinoff, he does not look the same. He is 2 sizes bigger. No, I mean like 2 people. He's like 2 times the size.
Yeah, he got
Muscle.
thicker.
He got thicker. He got built for some stuff by the time he had Angel. And so it is interesting. And probably all the more reason why they shouldn't have he shouldn't have been in goals at all for her. He shouldn't have been a continuation. It should have just been like something that led to something else that led to something, because it's really hard to keep someone in that role.
Yeah.
And they don't age. I think it was easier because by the time we got other characters who stick around for a little while, all of the cast have aged up in such a way that it's not as noticeable, but it's noticeable in those first few seasons with Angel, I felt.
That's agreed.
Trying not to give too many spoilers away for people who are watching for the first time. So another thing, please let us know in the comments if you are watching Buffy for the first time, or is this a rewatch for you? In part 2, The Harvest, will Buffy stop the Master's plan? Will she be okay? And will Xander stop being such a lovesick puppy dog?
Probably not.
Probably not. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming back for our second episode, our first Buffy recap episode. We'll see you next time, and we talk about The Harvest. As always, I'm Quana.
Oh, I'm D.
And we'll see you guys at Screen and Heard. Bye.
Ooh.